Christopher, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
For sure, man. So, yeah, getting this started and getting right into it, would you be able to give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting question every time I get asked that because of course like okay, what roles, what labels, what boxes do I put myself in and from I guess the 3D perspective, I am a author, I'm a speaker, I'm a guide and really supporting and empowering individuals around the world in many different facets in the realm of transformation and helping people break free from their limitations and suffering and into a life of purpose, prosperity, and freedom. So, much of my work is focused on the breath. That is the foundation of what I believe to be everything. Without the breath, there is no life and there is really no spirit. And so the breath for me has been an instrumental force, not only in my own life, but also in the lives of many others. So yeah, that's a little short intro. I'm sure I can go much deeper than that, but I'll leave it there.
It's wonderful. Wow. So, where does this all come from for you to be on
Mm.
this wavelength, to follow the path?
Well, I would say it started many years ago. I'm almost 40 now. So back in 2008 really was a big turning point for me. I received a book that really confirmed and validated a lot of the things I already had felt, which was Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. So that book was gifted to me. And if anybody hasn't read that book, it's all about essentially reincarnation and life after life and really scientific evidence that there is more than what meets the eye. And so this book really fascinated me and really then led me on a journey within myself and had many profound catalysts and experiences that gave me direct experience into what Brian Weiss was actually talking about. So fast forward to 2012, I was finishing my master's degree. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was working at a tech firm, pretty much on the outside. On paper, I had everything that anybody could want in their mid 20s and had a great job. I had great money coming in. I had a new car, beautiful downtown apartment in Buffalo, New York, where I'm from. Lived the party lifestyle, lots of women, lots of alcohol. It was, just sort of this lifestyle that I got sucked into, and something that I certainly do not regret. But when I started to tune in deeper to myself, I realized that this isn't it. Like, I can't just keep doing this. Like, I had my fun, but this is not it. And, a part of me internally just felt empty and lost and directionless. And I knew there was more, and I wanted to fulfill these really deep core values of making a difference and helping people and not just like grinding away at a job to fulfill some company's bottom line, right? And so that led me on a deep exploration and deep contemplative prayer of really tuning into what it is I wanted for my life. And along the way, I was given a very profound sign, a sign that literally was a billboard driving home and at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. It said, "Are you ready to answer the call?" And at the bottom right hand corner, it said, "Sponsored by the Peace Corps." And so I thought to myself, what is the Peace Corps? I never heard about this. And so I went home and I Googled it and I looked it up and I found out that the Peace Corps is an American organization that sends people around the world to many different countries to live and work in these small communities as different, types of volunteers. And it really intrigued me. And so I went through the application process, many rigorous tests mentally, physically, emotionally for a whole year. And then after that year, I got accepted and I was sent an acceptance letter that I had pretty much 7 days to decide. And I was accepted into Peace Corps Tanzania. And Tanzania is in East Africa on the Indian Ocean. And so there was a massive opportunity in front of me. And so I'm one to lean into edges. And of course, there was a lot of fear, but I knew in that moment that I had to do this or else I would regret it for the rest of my life. And so basically, I embarked a few months later on a plane 8,000 miles away with a group of 35 people, and I was set to live in Tanzania for the next 2 years of my life. And during that time, I really learned so much about myself. I was in isolation. I didn't have any cell phone signal. I had no running water, no modern amenities, no heat, no air conditioning, like very primal living off the land within this community. I had to learn Swahili, so it was a very, very powerful catalyst in my life. And during that time, I went about halfway through my service, I went to Zambia and I went whitewater rafting. And that was another massive turning point for me. I had, during that trip, I had fallen out of the boat into a class 5 rapid where I got trapped and sucked into the water, into this essentially like this washing machine of these tumultuous waves. And I began to lose consciousness and started to drown. And I started to also leave my body at the same time. And through that experience of going from this intense fight of these rapids to then losing consciousness and essentially dying in that moment, I really began to feel the true essence of who I was. And then moments later, getting saved, brought back to life, my chest being pumped, water coming out of me, looking up at this blue sky and the canyon around me, and being so incredibly grateful for this experience of being alive as a human. And in that moment, I was given a message, and that message was, you are here to teach people on how to be alive and feel alive. And it's through the power of your own breath that you will do this. And since that moment, that was 2014, I've been on this quest and this journey to uncover the hidden secrets of breath, not only in my own life, but many others. So I'll leave it there. There's much more to share, but that's pretty much the foundation of my experience.
That's amazing, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a baptism or a rebirth in some
Rebirth.
sort of way,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's exactly what it was.
Rebirth into spirit or into
Yep.
breath.
Yep.
Wow, man. That's crazy. And it sounds like you answered the call.
I answered the call with some hesitation, but I answered the call and continue to answer the call because there's been many more initiations along the way. But you can't be doing this work if you're not willing to step into the fire.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's crazy. I don't even know where to start. That is pretty wild. You followed this hedonistic playboy lifestyle, right? Then from there, you realize that ain't it. Had a near death experience, and now you are teaching essentially meditation.
For lack of better terms, yeah, yeah.
Now, how would you describe why the breath is so powerful? Why you find that this is the way to live life, as you said, to be happy, to be joyous, to find bliss, and not the materialistic, hedonistic lifestyle? Why is it all about the breath?
Mm. Well, there's many ways to answer this, and I kind of start on a base level, right? So someone that's listening to this conversation, and saying, "Yeah, my breath, it's automatic. It just happens on its own." And thank God it does, because if it didn't, then we wouldn't have life. We wouldn't be alive. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But the breath is not just a mere tool for survival. It's a tool, it's an instrument for deep and profound healing and transformation. And it's a gateway to personal and spiritual freedom. Now, on the surface, when you tune into that, you're like, okay, but how? Why is that the case? Well, the thing is that we take about 23,000 breaths per day on average. Okay, think about that for a moment. 23,000 breaths per day on average. It's a lot of breathing. And oftentimes, these breaths, most of the time for most people, these are unconscious, right? We're not thinking about it, it just happens. But when we begin to bring just a very small percentage of our attention to the breath, we begin to notice different things. First, we begin to notice that, wow, I'm really uptight because I'm breathing fast and shallow. I'm breathing from my chest, or I'm holding my breath a lot. These are all signals and signs of someone that's in a disruptive pattern, a trauma pattern, right? And all of us have experienced some level of trauma, whether that's from just a grand society level down to a very personal level. And that trauma, which we'll get into in a bit, disrupts our natural cycles. Because if we look at a baby and a baby's breathing, a baby will breathe from their belly, from their diaphragm. I remember when my son was born, watching my son, and just observing him and the deep inhales from the diaphragm, which is how we should be breathing. This is the full breath experience. But as we go into these different experiences, as we become indoctrinated and imprinted throughout our lives, we begin to hold on, right? Because what happens when we experience any level of trauma? We go into fight or flight, which is a survival mode. And then from there, we get stuck in locked into that fear or any of those emotional imprints that happen from the trauma, which locks us into this shallow or fast breathing or holding our breath. And this then exacerbates the already existing stress and anxiety that we live with, or overwhelm. And so people are essentially locked into a fight or flight state for pretty much their entire lives without knowing it. So when you bring attention and consciousness to your breathing, your breath, and you begin to deepen your breath and breathe into the belly, into the diaphragm, well, you begin to open up pathways where life force energy, which is the energy currency of the universe, of source, begins to flow through us and start to open ourselves up beyond just the survival mode and into a space of thriving. Now, there's much in between that. Doesn't always happen in an instant. We begin to clear blockages and barriers that exist within us to then really truly access the core of who we are, which is not the ego identity and the labels and the boxes and all the things, the stories that we tell ourselves. It opens us up to a higher state of awareness where we can tune in with our soul self, not our ego self. So there's so much to say about this, because in my book, I talk about how breath is a tool for healing, how it's a tool for discovering our higher purpose, expanding our consciousness, and ultimately manifesting our dreams. So these are all little micro bits on how we can work with the breath. But I'll pause there because I think that was pretty much a lot to kind of say in just a little segment. So there might be more rabbit holes we want to explore there.
That was good. So essentially, this is how I see it. The breath is like the gateway into all of what you just described: manifestation, creator mode, living the life of your dreams. It all starts with bringing attention to the breath. And then if you can bring attention to the breath, you can bring attention to all facets of your being, right?
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
And it's so simple. We're
Hmm.
always breathing. So it's just about taking the time to really dial in on that. And then you can take that attention, that awareness into all the goings on of your life. Eventually, that comes down the line, I find, is like you bring that meditative mindset into all the comings and goings of your life. And yeah, that's when the fun starts.
That's it. And you start to live with more presence, right? Which is,
Hmm.
most people are living in the past or they're living in the future, not in the moment, right? And the breath is not only the gateway to these, to healing and to everything we just described, but it's also, it takes us into our body, because it merges, and it's the bridge between the human self and the divine self, or the higher self. And the body, in my opinion, is the access point for all of that wisdom, because the body is the storehouse of infinite wisdom. And it's also where we hold all of our imprints. A lot of therapy and stuff works from the level of the mind. But the thing is that when we're working from the mind, we're actually working in a limited capacity, because you can't solve problems from the mind. Everything has to be a felt experience through the body, and the breath takes you there, right? So again, I'm not saying the breath is the end all be all, but it certainly is the one of the most powerful and instrumental tools to really begin to open ourselves up to what's beyond the limited self and the false self that we've been living in for so long.
Yeah, well said. It's a fascinating choice of words. It's an instrumental tool because that's how I see the body. It's like an instrument that we tune, like a
Mm.
guitar, like a
Yep.
piano. You just have to tune it in the right way. Yeah, I've never heard it described as instrumental, but I believe it's very akin to that, to the
Mm.
essence of just tuning yourself to the right frequencies, man. And
That's it.
yeah, a whole new world opens up, right? A whole new world and a whole new way to process the world, really. And us talking about it now isn't going to do it justice. You really just have to do the practices yourself. The proof is in the pudding, and then you'll feel the difference. I'm not speaking to you. Obviously, I'm speaking to the future listener. It's like you just have to do this stuff. There's only so many podcasts that you can listen to, but when you do it, it's obvious how much it changes your being as you do it in a refined and ritualistic manner. I find like if you do it, say 5-10 minutes a day, that will cascade into a just enormous difference in how one processes. And it ultimately, I find it comes down to processing it intuitively. Like, do you find that this strengthens your intuition on a day-to-day basis, gets you in touch with the higher self, the Holy Spirit?
Definitely. In fact, I would say it's probably, aside, I mean, look at all ancient cultures and all ancient meditation. It's all been focused on the breath, right? Certainly there's mantra and things like that, but the breath is the way to not only regulate, but it's a connection piece, right? It connects us, it slows us down, right? It slows down the monkey mind and the chatter, and it brings us into a space of presence, right? And what happens when we're in a space of presence? Everything opens up. All of the information, all of the wisdom from the quantum field, from the akasha, from all of the universal energy that we have access to at every moment of our life becomes available to us. Whereas when we're just in our blinders and we're in tunnel vision, living from the mind, which is where most of existence is lived from in this human, meat suit that we're in, we very much indoctrinated to live from here and not from the body, from the heart. And the breath is, again, that's why I call it a gateway or a doorway into the divine and into these higher states. And from there, life becomes a lot more playful, right? It doesn't become as hard. Whereas most of us, we strive, we force, we chase, we control, we try to impose our own willpower onto life. When life has a deep intelligence, an innate intelligence to it, and really life can become effortless and easeful. That does not mean, and I don't want these words to be mistaken, it does not mean you will not have struggle, adversity, or challenge. But when you get and you go beyond victimhood and you really look at how life is happening through you, instead of against you, then you can begin to open yourself up to greater possibilities and potentialities that exist. And your intuition, your psychic sense, all gifts that every single human has access to become available. And from there, innovation, idea, creativity, inspiration, all of these things are there, right? Look at some of the most famous artists in the world, right? Beethoven or any sort of painters or writers or any other musicians. A lot of them, they say they tap into this flow state, right? And what happens in flow state? And there's science behind that. You can talk about gamma waves and these different brainwave states. But really, what we're doing, we're accessing the field that is all around us. 99% of our this experience is this quantum field. The 1% is this limited human experience. So there's so much available to us when we open ourselves up, and the breath is the ultimate access point.
Hmm. Yeah, that's getting a little more into it. It's like, what does the breath do essentially? It gets you more into the moment. And what is being more in the moment? It's essentially changing up how your brain works, either slower or faster. Alpha brain waves, gamma brain waves. I don't know the ins and outs and the science of it, but I do know it's a thing for sure. I've tried it out myself. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be with the breath. Like the people that you mentioned, Beethoven, Mozart, sculptors, Jimi Hendrix, I don't think they're necessarily doing meditative practices, but I think it's the same essence that we're speaking on now. It's like they're just so, they're not in the future, they're not in the past, they're so engrossed in the moment. And being engrossed in the moment, whatever way that you do it, whatever practice, really just means your brain is working on a different wavelength and you're getting all of this information so that you can create whatever wants to be created through you. As you said, life is lived through you, right? I think you said something like that. That's good.
Yeah.
It's like some kind of greater force is just using us in some sort of way, and
Mm,
we are willfully letting it use us. That's the beauty of it. It's a surrender to a greater force when you're in the moment.
mm,
You know, but
yeah.
it's not. Point of my story is it's not like necessarily all about the breath. Even though the breath is accessible for all of us, I do believe there's other ways into the moment. You know,
Mm, for sure.
different yogas to become engrossed, like physical exercise. I find like intense physical exercise, I reach similar states. Playing an instrument, as we said before, writing. What else? Sometimes even video games. I'll admit, sometimes video games get me like very engrossed into the moment. And yeah, so it's all about just being present. In the presence is endless possibilities, you know.
Sure is.
And that's it. That's all I gotta say. Endless possibilities. It's quite beautiful. Um, yeah. Do you have any other modalities? On that note, do you have any other practices or modalities that you would recommend to tap into this flow state, this creator mode?
Yeah, again, I always am of sort of and what I share with people is, the secret to living a fulfilling life is actually pretty simple. Now, what gets in the way of us living a fulfilling life and in this flow state and in this excitement and passion? It's our fear. So our fear tells us that, well, we can't do this because we don't have this, or we can't do this because we feel unworthy or insecure inside of ourselves, or it takes too much time to, whatever the excuse is, the fear will completely water down our spirit. And so if anybody is really desiring to live a fulfilling life, a passion filled life, really the key is to first listen, tune in to yourself, right? Beyond the distractions and the noise of the mind. So we covered that. That's breath, which is a direct access point for all of us. But then what do we do when we receive the wisdom or the information? Well, we take aligned and we take inspired action. So, what does that look like? That's following our excitement to the best of our ability in every single moment of every single day. The business I've built, the life that I've created, all of the things that I've experienced has all been by following my excitement. What's the next most exciting next step that I can take? And when you do that, and that might seem like illogical, right? Like go and do this thing, go and play this instrument, or write this, or do this. Even if my mind is telling me, no, that's not productive, or that's not something that you should do to be building your dreams. I'm telling you right now, my life, the life that I live, which is, I will be very transparent, is a very incredible and blessed life, not only financially, but also from just doing what I love and having the freedom. Now, it's taken me many years to get here. This doesn't happen overnight. There's been a lot of grit and dedication and commitment, but it's all been following my excitement. I had an inkling many years ago in 2014 that I had this message came through that I need to be working with the breath. So I followed my excitement. Where did that lead me? Kundalini yoga, certifications, then developing my own breathwork modality, to creating an app, to writing a book, to all of these things. It's all been because I've been excited about it and something that I've been passionate about. And it's not the only thing. I have many other projects within the personal transformation, spiritual growth space that I'm involved in that have all built a business that has been passion led. And so when you're in that space of excitement and passion and bliss and joy, that's very much an access point to being in the present moment.
Yeah. So essentially, it triumphs over any fear that the
Yeah,
monkey mind or the ego mind would try to portray to you.
for sure. Well, I mean, the thing is that, you know, I would say that for every human, no matter who you are, no matter how much inner work you've done, fear is always going to come up. But we can use fear for us and use it to propel us and go into the fear rather than allow us to drain us, right? Where most
Yeah.
people, they don't step beyond their comfort zone because they're terrified of what might happen. They might fail, they might be rejected, they might, whatever the story they're telling themselves. But what you begin to realize is that fear is an illusion. Fear is something that is created by the mind. It's not real. And when you go into it, you begin to realize, wow, I was scared of that the whole time. Sure, again, I like to say that it's sort of a propeller in a way, but just like any emotion that we're scared to feel, fear, grief, anger, anything that's labeled perhaps negative emotions, these are all catalysts. And when we go into them and we feel them and we experience them for what they are, they don't have a stranglehold on us anymore. But most of our life is spent suppressing and repressing these emotions because it seems to be too painful to feel them. And so we'd rather just say, that let's just put that over here, right? But that then becomes your shadow, which then creates a whole slew of problems and projections in your life.
Hmm. It's a good point. Yeah. It's not that the messiness of the mind disappears when we follow the path and follow these practices and modalities. It's just that we know what to listen to. There's seemingly like two parts of our being, it's the higher self or the lower self. And what are you going to listen to?
Exactly.
Mm. Yeah, man. I feel it. Now, do you find that because you've learned these things about yourself, that in your creativity, there is an essence of giving back what you've learned? Like this sense of service in your work, and that's almost like an obligation because you know how much it's helped you.
Yeah. Everything I've built, everything that I do is based on how much I can give back and how much I can serve. One of the greatest questions that anybody can ask themselves, and a question that I continue to ask myself all the time, is how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? Right. And so that might look like every day waking up. How can I be of service today? That might just be helping a woman walk across the street because she has a bad leg and she's limping. That could be giving someone money because they are in need of food or something that requires their survival. Or it might be, helping a friend, or it might be something bigger than that. Right. So everything that I do is based on that, because when you base your life on service rather than service to others rather than service to self, right? This is a classic teaching in the law of one for anybody that's heard of the law of one. When you're service to self, you're essentially in this mode of like, how can I get more? How can I take more? Right? It's in the shadow of greed. Whereas in service to others is how can I give more, right? From a place of authenticity, not to give to get, but how can I give of my gifts that I've been given by God, by creator, by source to then share with the world? Because when I'm of service to others, I'm actually of service to myself because it's all one. But
Yeah.
the thing is that most of us we are so much ingrained within the survival mindset that we have to take and get, because if we give of anything, then we're going to be in this space where we're losing, right? But that's just lack and scarcity. That's a false program that's playing out. Now, someone that's dealt with lack and scarcity my entire life, you know, programs, deep conditioning and imprints that I've had to really work with and overcome. And thankfully, by doing a lot of this energetic work, mindset work, all of that, I've been able to now be in a space where I realize that everything, abundance is infinite, right? Like, we are abundance. That is our birthright. It's who we are. It's the core of who we are. We are the same reflection of nature, which is abundance, of the universe, which is abundance. We are built from the same matter. So we inherently are abundant, and there isn't scarce amount of resources. There's infinite resources. We're not taking to then, so someone else loses. It's all a win-win-win, especially when we're of service and giving of our gifts in a way where we can truly benefit the collective.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the law of one. I was reading that last night a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it's a coincidence.
Definitely
But
not.
yeah, I like how they phrase it in terms of almost like evolution. We're here evolving to higher densities, right? And if you want to expedite your evolution, it's not service to self. You can still evolve, but you're going to reach a limit. There's going to be the cutoff. I think it's the sixth. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. I don't know the actual numbers, but I think you get cut off at the sixth, and you can't reach the seventh unless you go service to others. So even if you just want to look at it in terms of like working on yourself in some kind of evolutionary way, you're not going to be able to climb the ladder unless you do serve, right? It's like the highest form of embodiment here is serving others. You can try and be selfish all you want, but that only goes so far. But as you said, even serving others is serving yourself, and even serving yourself is serving others. I guess it's just about intentionality. It's
Yeah.
like, where do your actions come from? And that is what leads the way through your evolution.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Are you an experienced reader of the Law of One?
I've read all the editions. Yeah,
Okay.
I've dove pretty deep. I'm one of those sort of, I guess, people that likes to dive into different texts and systems. And so I've, over, more than a decade, 15 years or so, I've gone deep into many different systems of thought and texts that intrigue me.
It all relates in one way or the other.
All does. Yeah. Yeah. They're all saying the same thing, but in different ways.
Hmm. And what I think they're saying is there's something going on here. There's some sort of embodiment. There's some sort of frequency and wavelength that we may have been speaking on in the last half an hour that you can attune yourself to. Many different labels, many different symbols that are used, but um, pretty much it's like it's up to you. They call it the path for a reason because it's something you walk, right? Jesus said, "Follow me." It's all the same essence. There's like, it's not all just randomness. It's not all just chaos here. It's not all just live and let live hedonism. There is a way, the way of living that has some sort of order to it. You know what I'm getting at? It's
Mm.
like an orderliness that you bring to the human experience that transcends this life, quite frankly. And that is what life is all about. Maybe take the Buddhist formulation. You may take the Hindu formulation, the Christian, Muslim, but all in all, it all relates. Something greater than the human preoccupations, the ego. That's what one, at least speaking personally, that's what one can find is that, like, wait a second, they're trying to tell us something. that it's more than just like sensual gratification, like a true higher purpose for living here in the human condition.
Mm. Yeah.
What do you say you find though? Is it similar to that aspect when you're diving into these texts? I like to say the truth is one and the wise call it by many names.
Mm.
Would you say that you found something similar in your quest?
Yeah. I would say that you are it. You are the medicine. You are the truth. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of what a lot of religions teach, which again, there's truth encoded in all religions, yet a lot of times there's, especially if we look at the Christian narrative, we see that there's a God outside of us that is casting judgment and fear amongst us, right, and judging our sins and everything else. But I don't truly believe that, right? I believe that we are living within the presence and power of God, of Source, and that it is already within us. We are a fragment of it. We
Mm.
are a child of God, that we are not separate from God. It's all one grand union that's playing out. And when we understand that, or we can come to the understanding that we are a part of this infinite weaving of interconnectedness that's happening at all times, like we begin to take responsibility and ownership for our lives, and we don't play victim and say, well, this person did this, or this happened to me because of this, or whatever the story we're playing out. We can begin to transcend all of the limiting thought and stories and come into a deeper truth. And when we live from this space, that when number one, we grant ourselves permission to follow our authentic path, to share our gifts, to be of service to the whole, to serve something greater than ourselves, and to tap into that infinite wisdom power that is within us, life begins to change, and we begin to allow ourselves to live a more fulfilling, thriving, prosperous, freedom filled life. And the more that we tune into the reality that life is happening within us, right? It's an inside out game, that
Mm-hmm.
consciousness is informing our reality. We look at our life as a movie, it's a projection of what's happening internally. So when we change the inner game, right, and we begin to work with ourselves on this deeper internal level, then externally everything else begins to mirror that and change. And so we're not out there trying to get everything, trying to chase this or that or whatever, or change this out picturing. We go within and know that it all exists within us at all times. And from there, it's more of an empowering existence when we can claim that and truly own that.
Amen. Yep. That's the big 180 shift.
Hmm.
Rather than outside in, it's inside out.
That's
It's
him.
yeah, it's sowing the seeds of accountability, right? That you are the master and commander of the ship. It's also recognizing simultaneously that there is a higher power than just yourself. Like the accountability is like simultaneous surrender, but also empowerment. It's hard to describe, but it's recognizing multiple layers of one's being, you know? Because it's like, how can you say that you serve others and there's a higher force working through you, but it's also like self-empowerment? It actually is the same thing.
Hmm.
You give it all up to get it all in some sense.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what they're telling us.
That's it,
That's what
man.
all these belief systems are telling us, right? It's like, give it up, man. Give up the ego's wants and you'll have it all. You'll have the world. The world is yours. The world is yours when you don't even want the world anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
It's good stuff. Yeah, I think you mentioned it before. There's this sense of play. That's something that I've been exploring recently, is this essence of play, childlike wonder at it all. Being able to play with the stuff that we didn't um, think was playful, stuff that we took serious. It's taking it a little less serious. And it's not being like immature or naive with one's life. It's just like regaining that just awe at the mystery of our life that we had during childhood. All children are like that, right? They're just like so in awe of everything. Everything is new. Every experience is new to a child, and they're just so engrossed in the experience. And I think that's something that we regain when we follow the path, is that just general awe of not knowing, right? Because the mind wants to put labels and symbols on stuff like, oh, I know what this is, I know what that is, I know how I should be, I know yada yada yada, I know. But I think ultimately it comes to just an ultimate unknowing, not knowing. And that is liberation. There's a sense of freedom in not knowing. And like I said, it's not like ignorance. It's not naive, being naive. It's it's like in that unknowing is an undoing. It's an undoing of all the knots of how you should be, how you should look, what you should say. The list goes on. And you just truly live in a childlike way, but also empowered, I guess is what I have to say. It's like
Mm.
it's playful, but it's almost like um mature at the same time. Again, simultaneousness to it. You get what I'm trying to say here? There's a simultaneousness to our being that we can find in this way of life.
Yeah, absolutely. As a father of a 5-year-old son, seeing his experience, living through his experience, it's very much a playful existence. It's like first thing you get up in the morning, it's what are we playing? Right? Whereas my existence that's been conditioned and imprinted for so long, it's okay, what am I working on today? Right. So there's a very big difference in that type of mentality. So I've learned a lot through him as a teacher, as a master of coming back to that childlike wonder and innocence and cultivating just hobbies and doing stuff that I really enjoy outside of like I'm building and created a business and a brand around things I love. But even sometimes that becomes serious, right? Because now you're tied into the sort of business aspect of things. And, I'm always learning to try to find balance with that. But I think I'm a big student of the gene keys and have been for many years. And then the gene keys, one of the gene keys is the shadow of seriousness, and in that gene key it speaks to this idea that this seriousness is actually killing us, like not only metaphorically but literally, because it's creating this constriction inside of us. Whereas when we begin to live a more light-hearted existence and we can begin to laugh at ourselves and also laugh at the cosmic play that we're all in, then things become a little bit more easeful, and we don't have to live from this deep place of tension anymore, and things just open up for us. And so that's a
Yeah,
huge part of the path, and something I'm constantly learning. Like I'm definitely have not mastered that. I'm always have to constantly remind myself to, take time away, do something like might go shooting hoops or something. I played sports growing up. So that, or learning how to play my flute, or bringing out my DJ equipment again and start DJing, or whatever it might be, just stuff that like, it's like, yeah, it has nothing to do with my business. I just want to do it because I'm playing and I'm having fun with it.
that's it. Yeah. It's like an essence of just because. That's why we
Yeah,
play games. Just
exactly.
because. Alan Watts has a quote. It goes something like, man suffers because he takes serious what the gods meant for play.
Mm, it's a
I
good
like
one.
that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Now, do you find that essence of play is also brought into the serious stuff of our life, into the stuff that isn't exactly game like? Do you find that you can make business somewhat game like and make the errands of your life somewhat game like?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the more that I introduce, like, so for example, I have one of my projects, one of my many different projects I'm involved in is called Breathe with Cannabis. And in that experience, we blend wisdom teaching, self inquiry prompts, conscious cannabis, intentional cannabis use with breath work, and it's extremely profoundly transformational. And my business partner in that, Ryan, who is a just pretty much just like a master of the whole world of cannabis, right, and helps people break addictions and these sort of tendencies that they have around cannabis, it becomes more of a playful spirit, but also something that can take us deep into our body, into our somatic body, to give us awareness into our shadows and so forth. But the reason I mention this is because in these 2.5 hour workshops we run, um, which thousands of people have come through by now, we have dance parties. So we have these cannabis connection breaks where we put on music and we're dancing and having fun and liberating ourselves. And so, one of our mantras in that experience is healing can be fun. It doesn't have to be serious. And so much of our time, especially those that, live within the personal growth development world, it's just like this constant cycle of healing, right? And it becomes so serious and so tense. But you can heal through fun and you can heal through play. And that's one of the things that I really want to bring through and share, not only in this experience but other experiences that I create, is that we don't have to make this such a serious thing, and we can actually not only have fun, but we can liberate ourselves into a place of freedom through this. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Amen. Yeah. I want to go on that topic of cannabis and the spirit of cannabis.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah. Do you find that is a extremely helpful tool in acquainting yourself with the breath and, just meditation and modalities of play? It's just invoking the spirit of cannabis.
For me personally, I would say my relationship with cannabis has been an interesting one. I started using cannabis when I was 13 years old. I'm 38 now. So I've never been a daily user or smoker or anything like that. Never had sort of addiction tendencies or anything like that. I've gone in and out of it. But I would say, most of that time was used unconsciously. Back in 2016, 17, I started to use it with intention and prayer, and really go into the space of like, okay, this is a plant spirit, right? Just because it's the people's plant, it's accessible, it's used by many people,
It's the
oftentimes to
herb.
numb out or to disassociate. It's
Yeah.
actually a very powerful teacher, and it will bring you deep into your subconscious and open up things that maybe you didn't know were present, especially when you're working with it as a healing tool, as a
Yeah.
modality. I also think that every plant spirit vibrates and attracts, we have sort of an affinity or to certain plant spirits. I know a guy that, he's been working with ayahuasca for 20 years. He's probably drank 1,000 cups of ayahuasca. And maybe I wouldn't condone that for everybody, but that's like a plant spirit that he has an affinity towards. He works with it, right? Or mushrooms or anything else. All these plant spirits, they have these different frequencies. For me personally, cannabis is, especially when used with intention and prayer and devotion, it's been an incredible ally for me to access deeper parts of myself while liberating myself to become more present. And especially when married with the breath, which is so profound. Breath work in cannabis is like a sacred marriage. It's so incredibly powerful when you know how to work with it. I've seen people that have gone, no joke, and I don't just say this lightly, that have gone to 20 years of therapy for 2 decades and come to one workshop and have an incredibly liberating experience in 2.5 hours, where they're free themselves from these burdens and traumas and wounds that they've been carrying for so long. So, it doesn't happen with everybody right away, but again, I can confidently say, after facilitating this for thousands of people, the transformation and healing that I see in that space is, it's like unlike anything else. It's unbelievable.
Hmm. Yeah. I can attest to that as well. Using it intentionally as a sacrament,
Mm.
then you'll find that cannabis is just a huge aid. It's a huge aid. You can use it just to, how most people use it in some sort of recreational sense. That's cool too. But if you really do use it with intention as a ritual, like this is a holy plant aiding your meditation, 100% it can help you so much because it allows you to just see things that you're not normally able to see. It like expedites the meditative process in
Yep.
some way.
Yep. Pulls back the veil.
That's it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I felt it so much. Like back, I started meditating and also started smoking weed at the same time. So they're like one and one to me.
Beautiful. You rarely hear that.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just because it's not really spoken about much. Even it's funny because it's being legalized, it's being normalized, but yet not how it's used, the set and setting. It's not normalized in that way, and it's sort of yeah, it's a little I don't know. It's disingenuous to the spirit of the plant because I do really fully believe these plants have spirits, as you mentioned before, ayahuasca and mushrooms and cannabis. They do something. Just how they link up to our brain, they do something that can aid you if you really want to, if you really want to invoke the spirit of it. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people aren't acquainted with it, but I guess the best we can do is just be the testament to that. Spread the good word and show people how effectively you can use cannabis and all of these other psychedelics to your growth and your betterment of life altogether, for your happiness, joy, bliss,
For
and to
sure, man.
become more in touch with yourself, right?
Mm. Well, there's no
Yeah,
mistake that, the Rastafarians, right, which is an interesting culture to study,
yeah,
really powerful people. And I have a lot of sort of ideas and thoughts around the Rastafarian culture. But, the I and I, the one with
yeah, exactly.
Jah, with God, right? And cannabis being such a sacrament of that culture, right? That connection point. And a lot of things, and I'll leave it here unless there's anything else you feel called to share about this. But a lot of the argument that I hear around most people is, "Oh, cannabis just makes me paranoid," or it fuels my anxiety and all of that. So yes, there's probably a lot of the THC and sort of the medical world of cannabis. It's just like way too high, right? Which really creates an
Way too high.
imbalance. Yeah,
No
it's
pun
that's not
intended. Way too high.
not natural. But what I would say is also there's a second part to this, is that the anxiety that's being illuminated, or fear that's being illuminated, has always been there. It's been underneath the surface. The cannabis is just shining a light on it, and it's illuminating what's already present within the subconscious in order for it to come out, to be felt, and to be transmuted. And so most people, they just want to say, "Oh, it's too much, I can't do this because of this." But it's like, it's asking you to look at that. Why is that there? Anxiety is a messenger. It's not here to harm you. It's here to give you a message to something that you're suppressing beneath the surface. So just wanted to drive that point home for anybody listening to this and say, "Oh, cannabis isn't for me." And maybe it's not, but that's a really something that I feel called to share with everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, anxiety is a messenger. That's good. Yeah. A lot of us though, that we just stop at anxiety. We're like, oh no, I don't want that. Oh no, please. But if you use it, as you said in the beginning, as a catalyst, you use fear as some sort of catalyst, has a message for you. Yeah, then you can go to new heights. You can grow as a person.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. Marijuana, I find in small doses is effective.
Yep.
Sometimes all you need is just like one or two puffs.
Yep.
That's it. It's not about getting as high as you can, because then, yeah, that might just throw off the whole vibe. That would just throw off everything if you're trying to use it as an escape. It's not using it as an escape. It's actually quite the opposite. You use it as a exploration. I don't know. What's the opposite of escape? I don't know. I can't think of it. What is the opposite of an escape of yourself? It's a
Well, as you're escaping is running, or it's avoiding. So the
yeah,
opposite would be, willingly going into whatever that is, right? And I don't know if there's
yeah,
a specific word for it. It's evading myself at the moment, but yeah, you're not running away, you're running towards it.
exactly. So it's like when you approach it with that opposite intention, yeah, obviously it's going to induce anxiety because you didn't respect it in
Yep.
the right way,
Yep.
right? It's obvious. I used to work in the legal cannabis field, so I
Uh-huh.
have so much that I could share, but I don't even know if I want to get into it. But I left it because it was so just gross. I was like, this is weird how they're treating it like some kind of commodity, just like anything else. the industrialization of cannabis is so harmful to the spirit.
It
And I'll
is.
just leave it at that. It's just gross.
It is. You should, if you want, I can connect you with Ryan Sprague, who, I mean, you guys would jam out on an amazing conversation. He's an incredible guy, lots really funny, just but an incredible, very knowledgeable, very wise as it pertains to cannabis. I think it would be a great conversation. So
Yeah, I think I've heard of them. So yeah,
I'd
that'd
love
be an
to
awesome
connect you.
talk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, that's like we could dedicate a whole hour or two to that because I have, like I said, a lot of experience literally in the field with using it myself. So yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself.
Cool. I'll let you guys take that one.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, where do we go from here? Spirit of cannabis. I didn't even think we were really talking about that today.
That's the beauty
Um,
of flow.
yeah, that's it. The beauty of flow. Yeah, man. The beauty of flow, just letting it go.
Mm.
Well, I think we can probably start to wrap it up, but do you have anything else that's coming to mind at the moment that you'd like to speak on?
Mm. Yeah, let me tune in here for a moment. If there's anything present. Yeah, I guess one core message to sort of bring things full circle here, we've touched on a lot, but really all in the vein of transformation and really essentially bettering ourselves and empowering ourselves, right? To be the creators of our life. And I would say if there's one thing that I would share and that I continue to share with everybody that interfaces with my work and does these journeys with me is that you're not broken and you don't need fixing. You don't need changing. None of that is on the table. It's just the realization of the wholeness, the abundance, the truth, the prosperity, the purpose, the love that already exists within you. It's not outside of you. It's not something to chase. It's not something to strive for. We're not trying to bandage and fix all these wounds and things that have happened to us. We're just peeling back the layers. We're actually subtracting all of the things to reveal and illuminate the wholeness that we already are. And so I'm all about simplicity. Oftentimes, especially in this space, there's so much complexity. There's so much, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to take this step or follow this blueprint or this formula, and you'll arrive. And, as someone that has been quote unquote a seeker of knowledge and wisdom and been on this journey for a bit now, I would say that a lot of it, the majority of it is bullshit. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of quick money making schemes that will provoke your fears. And so you need to do this to make more money or all these things. Really, what it comes back to at the end of the day is to come within yourself to align with the feeling, the energetic state, the frequency of what it is you desire. So if you want and you desire to experience abundance, right? And I'm not just talking financially. Abundance is all encompassing. The manifestation of abundance can mean greater depth of love and connection, meaning, right? Fulfillment, joy, peace, financial abundance, right? Whatever intimacy, whatever that is. To experience that, it's first experienced within as a state of being. And when you experience that as a state of being, that translates externally. So the practice is to come within yourself. And the first foundational access point of that is your breath. Your breath slows you down, it brings you into that. If you envision yourself living an abundant life and whatever that means to you, not just materially, but spiritually, what does that feel like in your body? What feelings does that invoke within you? When you can sit in those feelings, even just for a moment every single day, that's a frequency to attune to. Everything is based on these different signals of frequency and vibration, as that's what we are made of. And so when you tune into that, you can then begin slowly changing and rewiring your thoughts to align with whatever that frequency is, rather than the lack, the fear, the limitation that you've been programmed with. And that all begins and ends with breath. And so want to leave it there. And Yeah, if anybody wants to know more, you can follow me at Christopher_August on Instagram. You can go to my website, ChristopherAugust.co. You can check out all my stuff is on there. My book, Master Your Breath, Transform Your Life. And if you want real application of breath, I have an entire breathwork app that people can download and they can go experience it firsthand, direct experience. That's what I'm all about. It's called Beats and Breath. Beats and Breath. You can download from iOS and Android, and we pair basically breath with sound in a cutting edge way over trap and hip hop beats, meets binaural frequencies and solfeggio frequencies, all paired together to create deep transformation.
Amazing.
So thank you.
Thank you. Awesome talk. You're an awesome person. I thank you for coming on here, man. Really great. Really great energy. And yeah, man, keep doing your thing. Seriously.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me, and keep spreading the good word and having this podcast because it definitely helps people in so many different ways. So thanks for doing what you do as well.
for sure. For sure, man. Other than that, I wish you all the best and peace and love to you.
You too,
Thank
brother.
you again, Christopher.
Peace.
And peace and love to everybody that listened this long. Goodbye, everybody.